Hello everybody and welcome to Notorious Yugioh. I'm Notorious Cly and this is my King of Games deck profile for the one, the only, Demon's Resonance Resonators. This was a very melancholy run because we have a new skill coming and at least one new support card and potentially more new support cards coming. And the new skill and new card and Red Rain and potential of more new cards probably means that there's going to be a better, more optimal way to play Resonator Red Dragon Archfiend going forward. And even if it's not the optimal way to play it, it's new and interesting and fun. So it'll probably be a while until I pick up Demon's Resonance Resonators again. And while I am very excited at the prospect to build fresh decks with new concepts and new strategies, it's sad to see an old friend go. This was the first deck that I hit King of Games with in Duel Links. 15 King of Games ago, I think it was now. And this is the deck that got me all the way in on Yu-Gi-Oh! All the way back in. For those of you who don't know, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was a child, when it first debuted in the United States. My first set of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards was Structure Deck Kaiba, I believe. My brother got Structure Deck Dark Magician, I got Structure Deck Kaiba, and we would battle it out with our structure decks and whatever loose cards we could find around like kids do, you know? Hitanuma Soul and Fury of the Sea King. Yeah, good times. But yeah, anyway, I played when I was a child, and then a few years later, had to take a forced break away from the game. That's a story from another time. Kind of funny, kind of sad, all in one. But took a break and then came back to it after like years and years and years, like 15 years. And I found Duel Links, tried it out, bounced off of it, tried it again, started to like it a little bit more, found a couple decks that worked with me and the way I like to play, and then took a chance on Resonators, and it was over from there. It's been love ever since. This has been my favorite archetype, my favorite deck, and I can't get enough of it. So it's really, really sad in a way to see it kind of potentially go away, at least for a little bit. That's enough reminiscing and touchy-feely stuff. Let's actually talk about the deck in my King of Games run. So as you can see in front of you, I made a few changes to the list from last deck profile, and part of that is due to the meta developing to be a little more structured and a little more shaped. If you remember me talking in my last video, talked about how I was just playing generically good stuff because we weren't really sure what was going to be good, what was going to be popular, if the hits were going to affect decks like Goki or Magnite and all that stuff, or what the new releases were going to do to the game. So once that meta became a little more developed and a little more shaped and a little more structured, I was able to swap out my generically good, powerful stuff for stuff a little more targeted. And the two notable changes were I added 1 copy of Santa Claus and 2 copies of Forbidden Chalice, and then took out 2 copies of Solemn Scolding and took out 2 copies of Dark Hole. So I shrank the deck list down by 1 card. Cool, yay, increased consistency, hooray. And ended up playing stuff that was a little more targeted to beat what ended up being the #1 meta present, which was PKs. And then kind of sort of also Dark Magician after the structure deck released. I think the back half of my King of Games run was mostly Dark Magicians, like to the point where I thought about just taking out 2 of the Forbidden Chalice and just throwing in 2 Cosmic Cyclone too, just to counter the back row, because that's usually the only problem in that matchup, but that's a tangent for later. So yeah, I lost my thought. But yeah, so those were the changes I made to the list. And I went with Forbidden Chalice as kind of a replacement for Solemn Scolding, because it's something I could set going first and then use to interact and interrupt with my opponent. And I wanted Chalice specifically because it's good going first in that scenario, but also still good going second. If I have it going second, I feel pretty comfortable knowing that I can negate at quick effect speed one of my opponent's monster's effect. There's also a funny thing you can do in damage step with giving your monster 400 attack, and sometimes if you have 2 Chalice 800 attack, which could be enough to OTK them, and they never see it coming because you're doing it in damage step, and damage step rulings are weird, and there's very specific and niche rules on what you can and cannot activate in those steps. But anyways, yeah, Forbidden Chalice, good going first, which was the primary reason I wanted to play it, and then also good going second, which was the secondary reason why I wanted to play it. So a little better than Scolding in that regard, Not nearly as powerful as Scolding, but more flexible, and ended up being what I needed for how the meta developed in Duel Links after a little bit there. And then Santa Claus was a strong going second choice. Kind of took the place of Dark Hole, and I ended up only running one Santa Claus because I think two would be unnecessary, and I didn't really know if I wanted or felt strongly enough about any one card to have a 21st card in my deck, so I just took the extra bump to consistency, I guess. So Santa Claus was picked out specifically to counter PKs and their Requiem pass, because you just tribute it off and it goes away and you don't have to worry about anything. And if they have a wings set, you don't have to worry about them chaining wings to you using Dark Hole and protecting Requiem from being destroyed. On top of that, Santa Claus is also not terrible to draw going first. It's not great, it's not good, it's bad, but it's not terrible. Because if you go first in Resonators, you combo off, you make Red Nova, you set whatever else you have, or you use your extra Resonator to swap out for Doom Cal, and you build a respectable board. And then your opponent does their plays, they try to play through your board, but they don't out Red Nova. You can always take Santa Claus on turn 3 and just get rid of whatever they managed to stick on their board turn 3, and hopefully that removed key interaction from their side of the board, and now the path has been cleared for you to use whatever you put in grave, whether it be Wild Wind or whatever you top decked, to try and combo off and finish your opponent. So yeah, not terrible going first if you draw Santa Claus, because it always has use later in the duel. Whereas something like Dark Hole, in that same scenario, if I draw Dark Hole going first and then I combo off and then I stick Red Nova, I'm going to have Dark Hole stuck in my hand. I'm not going to out my Red Nova for them. If they couldn't out it on their turn, I'm not going to out it on my turn for them. That would be ridiculous. So yeah, Santa Claus, a little more versatile than Dark Hole, and counters a very specific problem, which is Requiem, and then more specifically Requiem plus Wings. And also, Santa Claus also came up against the DM matchup. I think I mentioned it already. Like most of my matchups post Structure Deck release were against DM towards the back half of my King of Games run. I'd say it was about as popular as Blue Eyes was when Blue Eyes got the Structure Deck and everybody was playing it. So Santa Claus is good against that because they don't get the float for the Dark Magicians if you Santa Claus them. Where if you destroy them, I believe they can't summon from hand or graveyard, but they can still summon from deck. So if they have a DM in deck, they can still float into that DM. Don't quote me, I'd have to read the card to double check the minutia of it, and it's not even a card I'd have to read. I'd have to double check the skill to see what the skill locks him into. But anyways, gets rid of the float because it just tributes it off. And then the rest of the deck was pretty standard stuff. 3 Crimson, 3 Red, 3 Call, 3 Wild Wind, all super standard. 3 MST, super standard. Monster Reborn, not so standard, but standard. It's really an obvious card to be playing, specifically for this deck, who struggles to find extension. Then Doom Calibers, I feel like, is a pretty standard choice for Resonators. That's pretty easy to figure out what I'm doing that for. Searchable interaction, searchable monster negation. And then the extra deck pretty much stayed the same. I didn't really touch it. The only thing I wish I did was swap out this Doom Dragon for a second Dark End. There was just enough situations where a second Dark End, making a double Dark End play, would have won me the duel. I don't think I lost because I couldn't make the second Dark End, but it made me grind it out a little bit more and put the game in jeopardy. And never feels good to have those missed opportunities to OTK out there, because you're always wondering like, oh well, if these 1 or 2 things didn't go my way, duel probably goes different and I lose. So second Dark End would have came up just for the double Dark End play, and on top of that, in addition to that, I'm trying not to say in addition to that so much during my editing. I've realized I say in addition to that a lot. It's just whatever, it's a phrase my brain goes to a lot. But on top of being able to OTK with it, just having double send potential in the extra deck is really powerful, and is going to become even more important now that Time Lords are a thing and they have their destruction protection. So that's a problem for next season and probably the next build of Resonators. So that's about it for the King of Games recap. A lot of PK, still a decent amount of Mac Knight, a lot of Dark Magician post-structure deck release. Rockets were pretty common too. But yeah, pretty standard, pretty easy run. I think I did it in 78 wins, which is a little higher than what I'm used to. It seems like that number has been slowly creeping up over the last, 3 or 4 seasons, which means this deck is slowly getting crept out of, I wouldn't say the meta game, because it's not a meta contender, but it's being slowly power crept in a general sense for dueling standards. So the total number of wins required to get the King of Games has been going up, so that lets me know that this deck is starting to fall behind a bit, which is kind of nice that we're getting the new skill, because hopefully that gets us back on track. And even if it's not a meta contender, at least it could be a solid rogue choice, and if not, it could be a very, very good King of Games deck, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's what most of us want to do. I think most of us want to hit King of Games and have fun while doing it. I don't think a lot of us care about topping tournaments or going to Worlds or anything like that. So I think I mentioned it earlier. If not, I apologize. I don't write scripts for these. I always just talk candidly. I think that's a little more my style, a little more authentic to who I am and how I like to do things. So if I mentioned it earlier and I mentioned it again, don't worry about it. If you need an explanation on what any of the cards do, or if you ever want to just talk about the archetype or interactions or anything like that, please hit me up on Discord. There's a link down in the description, or hit me up on Twitter. I'm not really on Twitter, but if more people start bugging me on Twitter, I'll probably end up being on Twitter more. But yeah, if you ever just want to talk about the archetype, go ahead. And while we're sitting here thinking about the archetype, I'm thinking about doing another Roaring Soul Resonators deck build. If you watched the test hand video, you saw that I noticed that I kept getting a lot of three fiend hands, which is cool for that build because you still get to go full combo. It's not a bad thing. But ideally, I'd only like to see 2 fiend hands and then have 2 extra cards, utility cards, flex cards, tech cards, whatever you want to call them. I'd like to have 2 of those to play with too, to help round out my turn 1 end board, or to help me go second. So I'm toying around with some stuff, trying to really figure out if there's a weird, odd, forgotten card that could be slotted in and really has a lot of utility. All of you have been doing fantastic and giving me suggestions and recommendations. Somebody recommended Oovaloop. I had heard it talked about, but never looked at it seriously. But after somebody commented on it that Oovaloop was one card RDA and Red Rain, I really took a look at it. I really want to toy around with that card. It looks like it has a lot of potential. There was another one too. Oh, Mechlord. How could I forget about the homie Mechlord? Mechlord said one of the Infernoids is a level 4 fiend type monster, which means you can add it off skill. And all the Infernoids are fiends. So in theory, you could open an Infernoid, dump an Infernoid, add an Infernoid. And then if it's one of the baby Infernoids, I think you only need to banish 1 Infernoid name for it. So you already have that one in grave. So yeah, level 4 fiend fire type, which means you can add it off skill. So there might be an Infernoid Resonator build you can go to. But I'm going to toy around with stuff. I'm going to mess around with stuff. And I'm sure you guys will see some of that process on the channel. And hopefully we get the skill confirmed or released very soon, or soon enough, and then new support released and confirmed soon enough, so I actually have solid information that I'm working with when I'm crafting these decks. I think that's all I got to talk about for this deck profile. Not really a whole lot of analysis to do on the deck. It's been playing the same way for a long time. You choose your tech choices to target specific weak points of the meta, whether it be tributing off a singular monster that your opponent is relying on having on board, or you use a negate to negate the key interaction on your opponent's board, use MST to clear the back row, and then you special summon Crimson, special summon Wild Wind, synchro for Red Rising target Crimson effect to special summon up to 2 Resonators from deck. So it's been that way for a while, and it's been good. To be perfectly candid with all of you, the last few years have been incredibly difficult for me. It's been a lot of big life changes, a lot of personal stuff, a lot of life stuff, on top of all the economic and pandemic things that have been going on lately. So yeah, it's been a tumultuous couple years, but there's a few things that have gotten me through it. First and foremost, the unconditional and unending love and support from my wife. If for whatever reason you're actually watching my videos and not just subscribed to help boost my number count, love you. Thank you for everything you do. The other thing that's got me through is the unconditional and impossible to measure love for and from my daughter. Somehow, if you ever find this video, yeah, your dad's a nerd. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you. I make YouTube videos about a children's card game. And also, I love you. Don't ever be afraid to chase your dreams. Making these kind of videos is kind of a dream for me. To be trying to become a content creator is something I've always wanted to do, something I've always thought about, and finally going for it. So chase your dreams. Don't ever be afraid. And then the third thing that's gotten me through these last couple years has been Special Summon Crimson, Special Summon Wildwind, Synchro Red Rising, target Red Rising effect, target Crimson Resonator, Special Summon Crimson Red Resonator, Crimson Resonator effect, Special Summon up to 2 Resonators from hand or deck. And it's kind of sad to see it go, but also exciting that we get to start this new chapter with my best buddy Crimson Resonator. So didn't expect this video to get this kind of reaction out of me, but again, I don't script these things. I prefer to be really candid about it. So I think this is a good time to end the video, and till next time, everybody, be safe, have fun.